Welcome to Western Truth Radio. I'm your host, Sean Davis. And tonight, instead of doing our second program, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be just having a shorter session or interview with just one guest this time. Just so you can get to know them, and we're going to do this with the majority of our regular guests before we start going into a regular system of news shows and analyses and programs and so on. So, tonight I have the great pleasure of welcoming back Penelope, who was on our first program, our program that's now relevant again, and I don't want to talk about that. We sort of did go into it several times in our briefing or sitting around here watching the news, but we're not going to go into that. We're going to do our job, aren't we, Penelope?
Yes, Sean. Thank you for inviting me back. Thank you for inviting me to be the first person that you're going to introduce to the audience one-on-one, and I guess you're going to interview me?
Yes, I am going to interview you, in a sense. As you know, and as the audience will get to know, or if they listen to the first episode should know, it's not my job to have a view or broadcast a view from my perspective, whatever that happens to be. This is about me just facilitating people's views, the guests that I bring on, and you are a star of a guest, one of our favourite guests of all time. You've worked with me before. Everyone's liked you in what they've heard so far. So, Penelope, how have you come to want to get involved with this, or who? Penelope's a name, and we've got that voice, but what else is there to you? What do you do? Who are you? And what's your reason for wanting to, have your say on these global issues and local issues, political issues, and get into debates with some of our other guests, which can be sometimes quite nasty?
Well, Sean, I'm not really afraid of your other guests. I know most of them, and half of them are beyond tranquilized. Others are, well, yes, they are a bit threatening, but not to me. I'm a strong woman. I may be old, but I am strong and wise, and I think that's why you have me on first, Sean, to help you along with things.
Well, I won't deny that. The reason I have brought you on first is you are one of the easiest guests, even when I disagree with you or have to try and move you along to a different subject, or we have to stop. You are one of the easiest guests of mine that I've dealt with, and people I know in this sort of format to talk to. So yes, in a sense you are right. I have put you on because you're the easy one.
I'm the easy one, but I'm also the nasty one, so you be very careful, Sean. So yes, your audience can know I might be easy. I'm also nasty when I need to be.
That's terrific. So everyone, she's easy and nasty. Just try and put those two together. Easy, nasty. Good. Okay. So we've got a binary thing there, two things going. Well done, Penelope. So in our first episode, just to go back, as it will give a bit of insight into some of your views, we talked about Donald Trump, his personality a little bit, not too much. We didn't want to hang on to that too much. His actions then, which were the Tomahawk missiles in Syria being launched, mother of all bombs being launched elsewhere, and a sort of escalation of conflicts. We also talked about his policies, and some of them you found to be quite admirable, and others you didn't. And some of the Western audience, what a lot of people would call, and this is an overused word, it's becoming a meaningless word, but liberal audience would call sort of your views a bit radical. So just explain what they were.
Well, it means nothing now. It was all about. I liked the idea of him building a wall. I understood it. I knew why he needed to do it. It's we live in Australia here. We've got a moat that's quite large. We've got concentration camps. We've got a navy, and we protect our borders. You can look at every politician that's up there, from the Deputy Prime Minister, the Prime Minister, the Opposition Leader, and so forth, and they will all say that you cannot get elected without having a policy on strong borders. So the fact that we have a moat does benefit us, but if you don't have a moat, build a wall, and maybe build a moat as well. And as far as I know, he hasn't even added to the fence that was decaying before. He has just pursued the drama that has been slightly thrust upon him and largely induced by him in the White House, and he's also then pursued an external foreign agenda past Syria, and now we're back at Syria. So we went around, we saber-rattled with North Korea, so everyone would buy a lot of weapons. Everyone would think North Korea is going to kill us. They don't do anything to anybody really, but a lot. It's just stupid. But anyway, people have made money from those bombs that have been dropped, used, and on both sides, successful American tests, always a good thing they're done, and North Korea, a test, bad if it worked, bad if it didn't work. They're going to kill us, apparently. But anyway, we're back to Syria. We just, when I say we, I mean the Americans and their coalition forces.
Yes, coalition means what? I read that it's the British Special Forces and the American troops. Basically, didn't specify others.
No, but they don't have to. They have this lovely word called coalition. It can incorporate everyone from an Australian to a member of Islamic State. It's really, really clever. We're a coalition. Yeah.
Yes. So your views have gone from what to what?
My views have gone from acknowledging the negatives, as I did last time, in my reservations, but also I did have a very positive outlook on certain policies. Those have all been thrown out the window. None of them have come to fruition. None of them are being worked on to any extent that's being publicised, or that he's even talking about himself anymore. I haven't heard him say wall for, quite a while. Or I'm sure he's broken plenty of walls with all the bombs he's dropped on people's houses and things. And I know when I say he, I don't mean the individual man, Donald Trump, so all the people out there who get upset because I said it. Get over it. It's a man in a White House. And, yes, I agree with a lot of people that the whole charade, basically, of the White House was being bugged by Obama, and Obama did it personally with, is going around putting things here and there. Or then it was the Russians that went around putting things here and there. All these things are nonsense, absolute nonsense. I mean, to think it wasn't it's not totally watched for every president is absolutely ridiculous. And but not by foreign agents necessarily, but by the American system themselves. So the puppet in chief, as they always are, or the face of the nation, or whatever they are, is all I mean when I talk about Donald Trump. I have no more respect for him than I would have for a Mexican than he was trying to stop getting into his country, because a Mexican would have done far less damage and given much longer time. So I think the whole thing's ridiculous. And every president, as I think you have said, Sean, privately, just carry it on the same agenda and in a different form. And what is it that you say?
Well, people are welcome to object, and I'm saying this as an observation. It is that every American president, the new one has to come in and be stronger in a different way than the previous one. I said in an interview to a radio station a while back, about over a year ago, a bit more than that, when it was Hillary and we didn't even know if it was Trump at that stage, and that Obama's job was to start looking weaker and weaker, and whoever won, it was their job to come with a much more overt way of dealing with things. And so that's just a logical conclusion, and it's logical that we went from George Bush's more overt wars with Barack Obama's more covert wars and policies. It's just a different way of doing the same thing, and different ways of colouring the box. And we had we seem to move into an ever-expanding, delusional theatre-type presidency. It was quite amazing when we had Obama, this great speaker, and captivating his audiences. And now we've got someone who's taken that to the next level, in my view, and taken that not just with his public campaigning and getting to the presidency, but also he's continuing it, and even when it's not useful for the American, I don't really want to say certain. All right. Well, the American regime, the Americans' view, and the American state's existence.
Yes, Sean. All right. I know what you're getting on to. And yes, it's a difficult topic, isn't it?
Well, it's not difficult. It's just, what do you think? In terms of America, you had some hopes in Trump. A lot of people did. I was so surprised at some of the people that did. Pleased to know that some of the people that did actually didn't and were just doing their job. That I can understand and respect. But those people who I sort of had high regard for, that actually believed in, well, you know what I mean.
believed that there was any legitimacy whatsoever in the American system, and that somehow one man could change it all.
Yes, something like that.
Yes, I know, Sean. No, I totally agree. It's a systemic problem. You cannot fix it by electing, for God's sake, one single man, a president, to overturn everything, and that he was this outsider and all this, and I'll acknowledge he's an outsider in other ways that are proving difficult. I'm sure some of it's a show, and I'm sure other parts are not. But to say he didn't know what he was getting himself into, I think we'd be being as ridiculous as everyone else, Sean.
Yes, well, everyone's talking about it as a circus, which it's looking like a circus, but, and, you know, well, when I say everyone, you know, liberal Western media, and then you have, within America, people who support Trump, who is saying that it's being destabilized by factions within, you know, the Republican Party and, you know, all the Democratic Party and all the liberals and all this sort of thing. Everyone's got this, you know, we've got everyone suffering from this, a very, what it's called, disgust, excessive disgust sensitivity, basically.
Yes, Sean. I like the way you put new things you've learned straight into the show. Yes, you you in that, but it's true, I suppose, and it's quite sad to witness our American friends and their minds, and it's really put me where I think you were a couple of years ago, Sean. You were at this point, and I'm having to acknowledge that yes, it's a totally systemically broken system that, for the benefit of America as a state, and that includes its people whilst they are there, it must continue to operate in this manner. That does not mean it's a benefit for Australia. That does not mean it's a benefit for the United Kingdom. That does not mean it's a benefit for Russia. It does not mean it's a benefit for China. It doesn't mean any of the other countries benefit holistically from it. They may benefit here and there, all round. They're not benefiting. It's you know, they'll get what they can back. Any insane person, insane state would. But holistically, Sean, yes, the American state and people must do this operation of continual perpetual warfare. I mean, I can quote someone I know who's sitting next to me, that America was founded on treason, and they are to this day traitors, and have caused war after war after war ever since. They know nothing but war. It is in their blood. As Malcolm Fraser, the former Prime Minister of Australia, would say, American exceptionalism is in their DNA. They think they are God's chosen people to a degree.
Well, yes, I think he took it a bit further than saying to a degree. That they are the light on the hill for us all, basically, to follow and to lead us all. I don't know how they can lead by well, I guess they're trying to lead like countries like Australia and New Zealand and Canada and the United Kingdom and so on into their pit, basically, into their wars, into their economic scheme, which is based on a lot of things, but primarily the the perpetuation of warfare, the production of weapons, and the continual use of them. I mean, this is why America, I'm going to say this, even though I'm not supposed to have opinions.
Oh, go on, say it, Sean, go and say it. Say it.
America is not an empire. It's a superpower. It could have chosen to be an empire at the end of the Second World War. Could have chosen to be an empire. Chose to be a superpower. Not an empire. Empires don't scatter troops here and there and allow and do things with treaties and semi-this, semi-that, like they have with, say, Australia. If America was an empire, we would have an American flag in Australia. We do not. And as Malcolm Fraser, the former Prime Minister, said, we are not another state of the American Union. This is Australia, just as Canada is Canada, and just as Russia is Russia. And this myth that there's an empire called the United States of America is not true. They are a child nation. And I wouldn't go as far as you did in saying how they came to be. They came to be the nation they are in a different way than we did as Australians, a different way than the Canadians did, and so on. Everyone's come to grow to the point they are at differently, but theirs has been quite unique, and unique especially in terms of the former and current, if you want to use that terminology, Anglo-Saxons and British peoples and Europeans. The American culture, the American people, the American society, the American nation, the United States, was the only one set up in this fashion. You know, when they talk about spreading democracy, well, I'm not saying I am a fan of democracy, but they're not spreading democracy. They are not a democracy. They are a constitutional republic. They have appointees and appointees and appointees and elect very few people. And that's why it's we could say it's amusing because, Trump, the current president, Donald Trump, can play this "you're fired" game. And he's doing that. It is looking quite bizarre. But America's good at theatre, aren't they, Penelope?
Sean, I mean, yes, that's what they are very good at, is theatrics. And Hollywood, and, the greatest propaganda machine working around the world. They, as you said, they are not an empire. What they've chosen to do, and everyone used propaganda. Everyone still uses propaganda. It is information. But what America does is being imprinted upon the Western-speaking world. The Western world, the English-speaking world, the Europeans. It's been even imprinted on Russians with American media. This idea of what the world should look like, what we should be like, and that is American. But what is that? To me, we can pick one. Abraham Lincoln. What did he say?
Please don't quote one of their presidents. You'll get yourself into trouble, Penelope.
Sean, you can see my voice is going because I'm getting faint. But I will quote a dead man, Abraham Lincoln. Yes. People think he was all about freeing slaves and the abolition of slavery. He was about the consolidation of the American Union. Big problem we all have today. He said whether he had to free some slaves to maintain the Union, he would. To free them all, he would. Or to free none, he would. His primary concern was to maintain the American Union. It was not about anything else. Anything else was more than just secondary. It was tertiary at best. It was about building a solid union. It was founded by rich traitors, and it's a little child nation destroying the world. And it's quite upsetting being up all night and just having to think about it, and to think that every day they are killing people. Every day the American monster lives. Every day every American accepts what they are, and they hug something, whether it's liberal television, as some of them are, hug Trump or hug the Constitution even. I will not acknowledge that bit of paper. They treat like they treat it like it's a Bible. It's not. And they treat rights, even, you can say things about rights if you believe in God, and the God ain't right, but if you do not, there's no such thing. Rights don't exist, only abilities. The ability to concoct rights and persuade people that they exist, yes, that's there, so rights are there. But really there are only abilities, there are no rights. And America is founded on lies, death, deceit, treason, rich people taking money away, running off. And now, of course, they wouldn't become an empire, and they're too cowardly to say permanently occupy and wave the American flag over a conquered nation, and then look after those who they had conquered. No, that is not how they operate. They are a nation of born killers. Thank you very much, Sean, for the talk.
All right, thank you, Penelope. I suggest you have a bit of a think about what you've said. We've gone very over time for a short interview.
I know, but I had to say it. And that breaking news story you'll have to deal with another time.
There's plenty of people on the planet reporting on it as we speak. Syria has been bombed again, as you said. Bye.
Bye! The United Killing Regime of the world, we all know as the United States. Every citizen there will say they have no say, they can't do anything about it, or if they do one day, it'll be another revolution. They're dreaming in the nightmare now. And it's quite pitiful, really. Not just for the world, but for the Americans. I do pity them. I do not envy them. And God bless God for those of us who are not Americans and who do not live in America. For that is where evil resides, and evil is spreading. That to deny is, well, to simply deny logic. So I would ask your listeners, just think logically. Good night, Sean.
Good night, Penelope. Well, we are going very over time, and people probably won't listen to this if it goes too much longer. I've got no idea how much time I want. So that's Penelope. She normally doesn't have such a croaky voice, and would be more understanding of, well, of the fact a lot of our audience are Americans. And I don't share those radical views. There's some truth in what she's saying. But we could take the same sort of analytical attack with any country. With Australia and our attack on the indigenous people of Australia, and the fact we still have concentration camps, and what Penelope was saying was good. Some would argue the fact that we've got a moat, essentially, and anyone trying to come here by boat as a refugee gets locked up in a camp, not on Australian territory, but on one of our, well, not on the Australian island, but on one of our little islands, some territory. We can just shove them over there, or throw to some foreign government. Even to America, we've thrown a stack recently. So I think we could do that sort of real harsh, cruel, analytical process with every nation. Having said that, there are degrees. There's been degrees in history. America hasn't been around for that long. So historically, proportionately, that's another way of looking at it. But as I said, there's some truth in that. There's some validity in what she's had to say. And if you really disagree with what she's had to say, I would like to hear from you. If you've got some solid points, or as to why she's completely wrong, or what your view is, or if there is some other thread. She's totally convinced now. I was never in that sort of frame of mind, but she's totally convinced that America is the number one force of evil. And I mean, everyone points that stick at everyone. I find that a bit of an unproductive thing to do. And I would like to know from our American listeners, if you are listening, if you are at this point in this program, if you did get all the way through that nastiness, because I will say it was nastiness on her part. And I just had to facilitate it and bring it out of her, as she was, or directed into actually less nasty terms. She did say she could be nasty. Anyway, so yes, I'd like to hear from you if you disagree. If you agree, I'd also like to hear from you. If you want to back Penelope up, write to us. Comment on this YouTube video. If you're watching it directly on YouTube, if you're watching it on Facebook, please comment there and get in touch with us. So just look us up on YouTube. It's Western Truth Radio. It's the channel name, or Western Truth TV will also be on there. And if you need to email us and want to give us some, not just hate mail, but a detailed response that we can bring up, our email is westerntruth.tv@gmail.com. And I'd love to have both those who definitely disagree and why, or agree and why, and anyone in between as well. And next time we will have another guest on, and they will share their views, and we'll hopefully also be able to bring some of your feedback into that conversation. If there's no feedback, we'll just carry on with introducing each of our key guests, and then we'll start getting on with our regular shows. So, I'm Sean Davis. Forgive me for the lack of quality in this sort of first introduction to a guest. We are running all night here with a story that's breaking. So thank you for listening. Stay tuned. Keep up to date with what's happening with Western Truth TV and what's happening with Western Truth Radio as well. I'm Sean Davis. Good night, Australia. Good night, America. Good night, Russia. Good night, Syria. Good night, Britain. Good night, Ireland. Good night, Canada. Good night, New Zealand. Good night, everyone. I do hope that there is some hope for each of us, and that we can facilitate some way of, if not getting along, at least getting through why we're not getting along. And then getting through that. So, you've been listening to Western Truth Radio. I'm Sean Davis. Over and out.